We're joined by Heather McDonald, Manhattan Institute Fellow, author of When Race Trumps Merit and The War on Cops, particularly apropos in light of today's discussion here. Heather, always great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Buck. It's great to be with you guys.
So you must be watching this debate play out over specifically the D.C. crime rate, but more broadly, obviously, this brings in a lot of arguments that you've heard from the other side in the past and counter arguments that you've been making. Are you surprised that it seems that so many national level Democrats have fallen into the trap of defending the indefensible, which is the D.C. crime rate? What's your perspective on this?
Well, I think this is one of the greatest moments of the Trump presidency. His August 11th Liberation Day speech just sent chills down my spine, and I mean in a good way. Words like we are not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. We're not going to lose our cities. We're taking our capital back. He has finally broken fully with the dominant ideology in America, which is to normalize the unacceptable, to define deviancy down. And Trump is saying, we are no longer going to make excuses for crime. This is something we can control. The Democrats have spent decades trying to write this off, to say, well, it's just kind of a normal aspect of cities. A lot of this, almost entirety of the criminal justice discourse on the Democratic side is driven by race considerations. They've, of course, played the race card here. So, no, I'm not surprised. It has just brought out their innate tendencies to normalize crime in an extraordinarily vivid way, and they are going to lose the debate. There's just no question. You cannot, as you say, they are defending the indefensible. Their argument is a set of non sequiturs. They say, well, crime isn't bad in D.C. because it went down somewhat last year. So what? The fact is, are you defending 3-year-olds being shot fatally in the head sitting in their car, as has happened over the last couple of years regularly? You cannot defend that, and yet that's what the Democrats are doing.
Heather, I actually thought about you on Sunday when I read the New York Times editorial, which basically said, hey, Heather McDonald was right about everything, without saying Heather McDonald was right about everything. I don't know if you officially read that editorial, but let me just read to you from the New York Times Sunday, and I want to just get your thoughts on the cultural winds shifting that would allow this to occur. This is the New York Times. During the 2020 protests, many progressives embraced calls to, quote, defund the police, including prominent Democrats, Kamala Harris, AOC, Eric Garcetti, then mayor of Los Angeles. And the protesters had an effect. Officers were disheartened by public criticisms, quit their jobs. Police departments had staffing shortages. Overall, crime surged, and Democrats have to recognize that they were responsible for it, and their arguments created this. Did you ever think the New York Times would say this when it came to policing? And what is the significance of them completely abandoning the cultural arguments they were making certainly 5 years ago?
Well, the editorial board would appear to be a little tiny island of sanity in the paper at large, because their news coverage is continuing to harp on the theme that Trump is a fascist by daring to talk about crime in D.C., and worse, daring to do something about it. And this is all just a race-based ploy to try and go after black cities. So there's an absolute split in sensibility there, but it is a good thing. I'll take every win I can get. It is a good thing that the editorial board has put out a little strand of sanity there that says that the police are not the problem in high crime communities. Criminals are. And when you demoralize the police, when you delegitimate prosecution and arrests, there's only one thing that's going to happen. You're not going to get peace. You're going to get more criminal victimization. And if your claim is, and this is, of course, a complete hypocritical pose, but if your claim is to care about black lives, you have to support the police, because they are the strongest agency in any city, in any state that is dedicated to saving black lives. They make arrests, they deter crime. The National Guard there is there now just to deter crime further. It is not there as some kind of occupying force. It is using its command presence, and when the cops back off, criminals take over. I have spent years going to police community meetings in high crime areas like the south side of Chicago or central Harlem or Brooklyn, and all I hear from the good law-abiding black residents there, especially the elderly ladies in these fantastic hats, is the police are our friends. Please, Jesus, send more police.
Yeah. Heather McDonald with us here from the Manhattan Institute. War on Cops is her excellent book. Heather, you are somebody who also not just looks at the narratives, but looks at the stats, the numbers. And have you been able to, I know it's hard at some level because you have to rely on the DC crime stats from DC, right? Meaning that the police, if they're cooking the books, it might be a little tough to see that because you have to rely on the frontline numbers at some level that they're putting out there. But have you looked into that at all? Do you think it is possible and or likely that this 30% crime drop, which as you pointed out, isn't even really significant, but that 30% crime drop may be the result of some fudging of the numbers?
I haven't looked into that personally. It is in line with the crime drop that we're seeing in the rest of the country. So if it were like twice as much, that would be a real red flag. But I can say, there's constant pressure. And ironically, in the police departments that are the best run, which means the ones that are most aggressive towards their own police commanders, that are demanding accountability, that are demanding that those commanders have a plan for lowering crime, and the top brass should be monitoring their numbers on a daily, if not hourly basis. So those precinct commanders are in the hot seat under what was known in New York City as the CompStat system. They're going to feel the most pressure to get their crime statistics down, and if they don't have 100% integrity, they're the more likely to possibly declassify things, muck around with how you categorize crime. The police departments that are lackadaisical, that don't have a strong command structure, their precinct commanders are under less pressure. So it's a weird thing, and it's something that departments have to fight. The New York Police Department has a whole unit dedicated to police integrity and going after corruption, and it's not well loved in the department, but this is a constant battle. I can't say in this case, but again, I would say that conservatives should not be pulled into this game that the liberals are playing, which is that, because crime dropped 27% last year compared to its overwhelmingly high post-George Floyd race riots thing, that everything is okay, and conservatives saying, it's still bad. Is that a true crime drop or not? The fact is, you can concede that crime has dropped in the last 2 years in Washington, D.C., and still say, so what? I don't care. Is it acceptable that every single day in Washington, D.C., there were 10 violent crimes, 14 car thefts, three juveniles shot a day? Is that acceptable? Is it acceptable that our homicide rate is 27 times that of London's and 60 times that of Switzerland? The only possible response is none of that is acceptable. And that is what is so thrilling about Trump's instincts. It's not even the details of the plan. It's that he has instincts that are correct, which is that any level of crime is not compatible with a civilized society. Children being shot, cars being stolen, mass looting going on, the carjackings, and it's overwhelmingly juveniles. 60% of all carjackings in D.C. are juveniles. Trump is correct. They are not punished. In 2023, there were 5 girls ages 12 to 15 who beat to death a 64-year-old cancer victim weighing 110 pounds. They filmed themselves laughing as they stomped and beat him to death. None of them had long sentences. The most they're serving time is until they're 21. Most of them will be out long before that. Trump is absolutely right. D.C. has a soft on crime approach that must change, just as every progressive prosecutor. It's all driven by not wanting it to have a racially disparate impact on black criminals. All law enforcement will, simply because the black crime rate is so high in D.C. Blacks commit about 96% of all homicides, even though they're only 43% of the population. Whites commit just over 1% of the homicides, though they're 39%. That should not affect how you enforce the law. You enforce the law to protect the law-abiding, not to protect the criminals.
Not only that, Heather, and the people who are the victims overwhelmingly would be black too. So when you say, "Oh, we're arresting people disproportionately for based on race," you're also disproportionately protecting people who are race, right? Because most black murder victims are going to be killed by black murderers. But last question for you here, and I love all the data you provide. Is there a city or a state, based on the data that you have seen, that is handling violent crime better than any others? And do they have policies that should be replicated nationwide? We're fortunate because we have these 50 different federal systems, so we can try experiments, and the idea is somebody in a state does something good, hopefully it spreads. Is there any one city or state that you would point to and say, boy, from a violent crime perspective, these guys and gals are doing great, we should be copying more of what they're doing nationwide? Any positive out there?
Well, until recently, I would have said New York City because of the CompStat revolution, the accountability revolution, where Police Chief William Bratton, followed up by
Sapphire?
Kelly.
Safer.
Kelly said
Sorry.
we are going to.
Kelly.
Go ahead.
No, I was Safer, Kelly. I was trying to give you the next commissioner, but go ahead.
Right. Kelly said we are going to bring this down. They brought crime and homicides down 80%. By enforcing the law, and above all by paying attention to public disorder. That's why also the Trump initiative against the encampments is so important, because this is something else that simply should not be tolerated in a city. You cannot have public space overcome by people urinating, defecating, shooting up drugs in public. This is not acceptable. We cannot define deviancy down. So New York was very good in paying attention to public order, in using its officers proactively to use their powers of observation to stop people suspected of carrying guns. It had an enormous effect. They've backslid in recent years. Now they've got a pretty good commissioner, Jessica Tisch. So that's good. But it's a constant battle, and we need politicians to have the basic expectation that crime is not normal. And again, it just cannot be stated enough, Buck and Clay. Trump's Liberation Day speech could be epic-changing if people get rid of the idea that they should just accept squalor, disorder, and violence as the normal part, and also mass looting, mass shoplifting as simply normal parts of American cities.
Heather McDonald, everybody. Always excellent. Heather, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Buck and Clay.
This is something that I should talk to you about now, because we're just discussing crime. And sure, Trump, the anti-crime revolution, that's fantastic. And we're hoping that this has huge ramifications across the country in a lot of cities. But just like with so many things, you are your first and last line of defense. You, for your family, for yourself, for your home. This is where Saber comes in. Yeah, I want Trump to be hugely successful in national crime stats dropping, but there's still a lot of crime out there, and you need to be prepared. And if you want non-lethal options to defend yourself, Saber is simply the best. I want to be very clear about this. A lot of you are 2A people. I'm a 2A guy. I've got plenty of guns right here in the room with me in the studio, but I also believe in having less lethal options when the situation requires it. And my wife just prefers when she's, I'll conceal carry, but she will conceal carry, if you will, not a firearm, but non-lethal options. She likes the pepper sprays and the pepper gels from Saber. Saber is the best in class, and this is a family-owned company that's been in business for over 50 years. Clay and I know the CEO. He relies on his own products to defend himself, his wife, and his kids. So trust me when I say these are tested, reliable, and get the job done for non-lethal self-defense. Their projectile devices in the shape of either a rifle or a pistol, depends on the model, are so effective, and they will stop the threat. Act now to protect yourself and your family. Save 15% on Saber's mega bundle with extra projectiles, magazine, and practice targets. The website to go to is Sabre. Now listen to the spelling, S-A-B-R-E, saberradio.com. That's saberradio.com, or call 844-824-SAFE.